Gary, in anticipation for tonight's big event.
Yes, I
So
can't wait.
for the people that are going to be watching this live, because we're going to be doing this podcast, I'm not sure when it's going to come out.
Yeah, it's gonna come out maybe about a month or two later.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a little while,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
okay. You
but
can
people
watch
are
it
watching
live.
this live.
Yeah.
So when is the show? Where is the show? And what's going on?
Yeah, so you can anticipate for the show to be released sometime in mid-January. You can find my show anywhere on social media. If you go to iTunes, if you go to Spotify, you can look me up on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on everywhere. I'm like CP24.
And
All right.
in tonight's event.
Yes, at tonight's event, we are going to be at the Ajax Hilton Hotel, and we've got Alfonso Cuadra giving us
The Godfather.
The Godfather.
It's coming your way to Ajax.
we got a packed room. We're probably gonna have people standing in it to listen to what you got to say tonight. So I'm super excited about it. We've got sponsors there. It's gonna be a great night. Right?
So right now, throughout today, people are gonna be watching this live.
Yes.
How can they get tickets? Is there a way to get tickets?
We are sold out, brother.
Sold out.
We are sold out.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
So maybe they can check.
So here's what we're gonna do.
Maybe you can do a screen from outside.
Maybe we should. We should do it like what do they got down there? The Raptors when they do it outside.
Tailgating.
Nah, that's tailgating. But what do they call it for the Raptors again now when they're outside there? Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Well, that's when your homeboy Alfonso goes into town, that's what happens.
That's right.
We sell out.
That's
Stadiums.
That's
I don't know if it's gonna be a stadium, but so I'm just gonna set this up here while we do the podcast.
Beauty.
And I want to make sure that our friends can get a little sneak peek here.
Yes. Do we need to go back a little further so we can get everybody?
Let me see.
Or
here.
not everybody, but me and you.
Yeah. Let me see here.
You know what we do? Why don't we?
We could.
Here, I'll tell you what. Let's just move this up.
Okay. My man's strong. My man's strong.
Let's move that up.
Yeah.
Make things work.
All right. Now, what's important to know is that the last time we did this, people loved it. They tuned in for the full 2 hours. Today it won't be 2 hours, but we're gonna bring the fire.
Absolutely.
People always ask me, Alfonso, are you gonna drop some nuggets? And I'm like, no. We're gonna drop bombs here. This is what we're gonna
do. Love it. All right,
we're dropping bombs here.
Let's grab those headphones. Let's get rocking and rolling, and let's share some great information for anybody who's listening, and will tune in obviously at a later date.
Yes.
So, you ready to rock and roll?
I was born ready.
All right, we are live, brother. How are you doing?
Oh, so good. Gary, so good to see you. I missed you, brother. I missed you.
I missed you too, man. You know what it is? When you come into town, when you come into the room, you just got a huge energy.
Oh,
I love that. And we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was like, on my way here, we were stuck in a little bit of traffic, GTA traffic, you know how it is.
Yeah.
And,
let's get that little mic up.
I was just like, you know what? I want to see my brother Gary. The last time we were here, we did a 2-hour session.
It was long. Yeah, but we also had a bottle of scotch, right?
It was good. You know what it is when you have a few drinks?
Yeah.
This is where the real advice comes up.
100%. 100%. When you get deep.
Yeah.
Right? And you start talking about things that are important, whether it's in here or not. But listen, I want to talk to you. There's two things really that I want to talk to you about today. One is the economy, where things are, and the other one is mindset. There's a lot of people right now, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. They don't know what to do. They're seeing things on the news. They're reading the headlines. They're listening to their friends and their family. And all of that is just so much noise. How do they maybe kind of start to cut through that? Like, what are you doing? How are you navigating these murky waters?
Well, first of all, I don't watch the news.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I pay attention to the markets, right, and I see what they're doing. I operate based on what's around me, where I'm going. I'm focused on 5 years from now. I'm focused on 10 years from now. Whatever's happening today is irrelevant to where I'm going. And so a lot of the times people tend to react and they make decisions based on where they are today, not where they're going. In 5 years from now, all this uncertainty, all this type of, media and interest rates and all the things that you see, there's going to be something else that we're going to be worried about, you know?
Well, you're
Yeah.
right, because it went from Corona, now it's gone to the economy.
No, it went from Corona to Ukraine to Will Smith smacks out Chris Rock on stage, and then we spent about 6 months on that, you know.
You're right.
And now we're on Yay. So it's like it's never gonna stop.
Never.
That uncertainty will always be there for a lot of people, and it comes back to understanding where you're going.
Right.
If you know where you're going, you're not uncertain.
Yeah.
You can't be uncertain. You can't be scared if you know the outcome.
And the other thing as well too is when you take a look back at where you were and where you are today, there's always fear.
Of course.
2008 there was fear. 2010 was
2000
fear.
Y2K.
2014.
Y2K. Remember Y2K?
Right, and there's always fear.
That was a legitimate fear for a lot of people that the world was going to end in 2000.
Isn't that crazy? That we thought it was all well. That then you also had the mind calendar.
Yeah. They're like, oh, we miscalculated. It was 2011.
Yeah. Right. So there's always fear in the market. So then what's the message then?
Know your outcome. When you are clear,
Yeah.
when you are clear on your goals, when you're clear on the vision on where you're going, then you don't have to worry today, right? You just know that every decision that you make needs to be in direct alignment with your goals, right? Elon Musk is not worried about the interest rates today, right? He's got a 100-year plan, right? His goal, he's not even going to be alive to realize his full goals and his dreams. And so, if you know where you're going, you know your outcome, so then you can think clearly. It's all about thinking clearly in the moment.
I love that. Yeah, so looking at the big picture and not being overly concerned with the small ups and downs in the market now.
Yeah.
However, somebody's new in this game.
Yeah.
They've been in the game for 2 or 3 years, and things are going great. Maybe they're in a variable, and they're like, okay, but hold on, though, I've made some miscalculations. I've made some bad steps. I'm in a heavy, and Fonzo, you got to know that some investors are in heavy negative cash flow
Yeah.
right now, right? Because of maybe incorrectly setting up their business in the beginning. When you're buying properties in a market that's always going up, it's easy to look like a guru.
Yeah.
And you can start coaching programs and all
Yeah.
these things
Yeah.
because everything's going fantastic.
Oh yeah.
But what do you do when you're in that type of a situation where you're over leveraged, you've got 4 or 5 or 6 properties on the go that you're trying to flip, you've got private funds, you've got promissory notes.
Yeah. It's easy to say now, while this is happening to a lot of people, that what you got to do is hunker down and find solutions. If you're in that situation, and I've been there, my back is up against the wall, everyone's calling you, your phone is ringing, you can't answer it, and it's easy to just put your head in the sand and give up. I'm going to say that real estate is a bit forgiving in that if you're holding on to the right real estate, time will erase your mistakes. And so if you're in a situation where you're negative cash flow, you need to stabilize, optimize, and maximize. People are too quick to jump to the next thing without fully stabilizing what they already have. If you're negative cash flow, well, what are the solutions? Can we put in storage units? Can we add laundry facilities? Can we add parking to the property? Is there a way to restructure the debt so you come out breaking even? You just got to survive 10 months. That's all you got to do, right? If you're in that situation right now, you just have to survive, right? You have to hunker down, figure out what in your life is in excess, you know, and hold on to the asset. Ultimately, you you will never regret that, right? If it's a good asset, hold on to it, figure it out. Time will fix that mistake, right? A lot of people put their head in the sand and they let the whole thing fall. And okay, it's easy in this country, right? You can start, anybody can start over, right? But do you really want to? You know, do you really want to start over? You know, I had to face that when I was in my early 20s.
I remember that. And we talked about that on our first podcast. No, not even first podcast, but the one we did last. We talked about it.
I almost went bankrupt, right? And the reason I did it is because I was gonna fight. Like, you know, life, and this is, we know, we love Les Brown, right? And he said, life is a fight for territory. Once you stop fighting for the things that you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. And so sometimes you gotta be solution oriented. Figure it out, okay? Now, if you're getting started new, well, then you don't wanna make those mistakes. You know, so you can leverage other people's mistakes. You can mitigate the mistakes by, you know, surrounding yourself around people that have done this before, that have gone through a few cycles, market cycles, right? This is not my first rodeo.
Yeah. And you know what? You touched on something really important. It's being solution oriented. And I think here's what that is, at least when I hear it. It's about bringing value to the marketplace.
Absolutely.
It's about learning, paying attention. Then and we're going to be doing a great event tonight. Then when you learn that, take that information, do something with it.
Yeah.
Then you do something with it, and then you teach it to other people.
Yeah.
And then you learn, do, teach. I think that's what you've got to do. In whether it's good times or bad times. You don't win the game if you sit in the sidelines.
No.
It's impossible.
And you don't win the game by giving up. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't win the game. Like, do you watch boxing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch Dante and Tyson?
Yes.
He lost. He lost that fight, but we all respected him. Like, he went all the way. They went shot for shot, you know, and Fury won that fight, but I think Dante came out on top because he kept coming. This is the third loss. And I think he's more respected now because of those 3 losses, because he went all the way. He didn't throw in the gloves, throw in the towel. He didn't give up. He kept coming. He kept coming. He kept coming. And I think he's more respected for that. You know, in hindsight, people respect people that have gone through some ups and downs and have come out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
People respect the fighter. People respect somebody that's willing to go in there and give it their all, whether they win or lose.
Yeah.
It's you did everything that you could do.
Yeah. You went in there. You gave it all, and then at the end, no one said, "Oh." What did we all say? It was one of the best fights in history.
Yeah.
Right.
But Alfonso, I watch you, and you're always giving it all. And you always have. It looks like when you look on social media, you always have a good time. You always have a good day.
I'm all in.
Brother, but you have to have some bad days.
Oh,
how do you navigate it? Because you do. You must. I know I do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feed off people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm around people, I thrive. I thrive around people. I feed off energy. Like, we're sitting here in this room, and like, I feel your energy, right? And very hard to capture that online, like through virtual. And so I love people. I love connecting with people. When I'm by myself, then it's like I get kind of like it's almost like I have no energy, you know.
Yeah.
COVID was really hard for me, brother.
Me too. Yeah. I'm like you as well too. I love the energy.
Yeah. My wife would get up, you know, and I would say, "Where are you going?" She's like, "To the bathroom."
That's funny.
And then I would say, okay, for how long? And so yeah, when I do have bad days, or I would say bad moments. I'm big on expansion, and for the people that are watching this, or the people that are going to be there tonight at your event, Gary, that's a big topic for me, expansion. And you're either expanding or contracting, and it's like an elastic band, right? When you stretch an elastic band and you let it go, it's going to be bigger than it was before. And so this philosophy of being in consistent expansion, you can't expand without contracting sometimes. And so I do contract. And for anybody that's listening to this, you are going to contract. You are going to feel scared. Just don't stay there. Don't spend too much time there. Sometimes you do need to contract in order to expand, right?
Yeah, and I think that also brings another great point where it's also not being scared of all the emotions. Like even like bad emotions can be used for good.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was in my 9-to-5 job, there was a point in my life when I felt disgusted with where I was.
Yeah.
And I used that as fuel.
Yeah.
And that's what was able to give me the energy and the power to get out of my situation.
Yeah, so reframing works, right? Like reframing the negative space that you're in, and then just reframing it, redirecting your energy. Comments can do that on YouTube, right? So, I have like thousands of videos on YouTube, and the thing about putting yourself out there is you are vulnerable in a way where someone is going to have an opinion somewhere.
Everybody has an opinion.
And someone watching this video can have a comment, oh, this guy, is a scammer, or whatever someone's going to say that's sitting there in their basement, trolling, writing comments. And, and sometimes, at the very beginning, I would read all of these things, all of the comments, and sometimes it would sting, because it's like, hey, you don't know me, and then I'm going to show this guy, or whatever. But that's giving energy to more of the negativity, right? You need to redirect the energy, right? Redirect the energy to where you're going. And if you know the outcome, have you ever promised someone that you're going to watch a sporting event with them? Maybe they're at work or whatever, or a movie or a show or whatever. It could be your wife, and you couldn't help yourself, and you watched it.
Yeah.
And then now you're sitting and you have to pretend you didn't watch this, could be the sporting event or a movie or a show, and you're sitting there with the person, and they're at the edge of their seats, but you are relaxed because you already know the outcome. And so the outcome comes from understanding where you're going, understanding why you're going there, right? What's the purpose? What's your why? What's going to be the driving force? And knowing that no matter what's going to happen, you have all of these exits. Like you've already thought about all the different exits. And so, if you get in your poopy place, and you start thinking about where you're going, your purpose, your why, all of the different exits and solutions, then it's easy to now redirect the energy and keep moving forward. We were talking about this before we turned on the camera and the microphone. So I'm doing these new builds, and there's good things and bad things about it. Number one, you have time to organize investors and structures and all the things that you have to do. But the other thing is, it's like in a year that you're building that building, a lot of things can change, right? Funding and interest rates and economies and all of the rules, right? And so, we're doing this with this project. This is about 14.5 million, 60 units, brand new. Completion is in 2 weeks from today. So we're looking at like early November.
Okay.
And Everything is in place. We had the funding close to $4 million sitting in an account for a year collecting dust, just waiting, right? Just waiting. Someone say, "Oh, why don't you put it out? Put it out to work." Whoa, 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 whoa! We have this deal. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, we need to close this deal. A month ago, I was in Italy. And we thought we were going to get $10 million, and this is what we were talking about. The type of lending that I do, commercial lending.
When you say you were thinking to get $10 million from what?
The funding. We're talking about the funding.
The funding piece of it, or the value of it?
The financing.
Okay.
The financing piece.
Yep.
And so, people are focused on the interest rates. I'm focused on the bond market. And the bond market sometimes responds to the interest rates, right? And that's where this is where the commercial lending is a little bit different than traditional residential mortgages. And so
now, and when you say you're looking at the bond market, which one? What year? 2-year, 5-year?
Yeah, the 5-year money.
Okay.
5-year money. And so, you can get 10-year money. It's going to be a lot cheaper. But 5-year money is kind of what we're looking at. And so, just to give you an insight, I have multiple deals like this. I'm giving you an example of one, but I have multiple deals like this happening at the same time. So we expected 10. They said, well, now where the bonds are, we're gonna give you 9.8. Okay, so now we have to adjust some things, but you know what? We're gonna be all right. Before I went to Italy, the bond markets had gone up even more, and now we're at 9.4. Last week, so give some context here. Last week was right before October 26th. So the bond markets were already reacting to potentially what could happen October 26th, and so they had gone through the roof. So at 9.4 million. Our interest rate was expected to be around 4.3.
Okay.
Last week, it went up to 4.73. What does that mean? It means that the funding was going to end up being 8.8 million. So I'm about $1.2 million short, and so this is happening throughout all of my deals, and if I were to accumulate how much money, I would have to come up with is probably close to $5 million, right? So now I go right to solution mode. What is the solution? Bring in more money. Go back and tell everyone, hey, we need more money. Maybe go back to the seller, right? Talk to the seller and see, what can be worked out, because, by the way, this particular seller, I have other deals with this particular builder, and it's a domino effect, right? And so, multiple calls, what can we do? Can we get secondary funding, right? And so within a matter of, I would say, 3 to 4 days, I had everything organized. I had funding, backup funding over here. I had the seller come in with a $1 million VTB at 3% on that particular property, and other ones as well, and other monies here, and we figured it out.
That's awesome.
We figured it out.
And you, okay, go on.
No, I was going to say then that yesterday, October 26th, then they roll out the announcement, right? They roll out that announcement, and they say, well, everyone was expecting 0.75 and 100, because human beings look for patterns, and we find a pattern, and then we just assume, right? We assume based on past patterns, and everything was leading to either 0.75 or 100 basis points, and they only went 0.5, right? And so in the bond
Yeah,
market,
that's funny you say it like that, because you're like, oh, that's good news.
well, that's expansion, right? Expansion, you can't enter expansion without realizing the power of anchoring. And if you, and we're all anchored to all kinds of things, right? Because we look for patterns and we get comfortable, and that's our mind gets anchored to certain numbers, right? And once you think it's going to be over here, but it's over here, it seems cheaper than what we've seen in the past because we're anchored to point 100 points, and so now we're 0.50, and the markets now, like, they went down significantly.
Right.
I've made a couple $1 million just in this one day, right? And then now I'm locking in my interest rates, and I'm happy, right? But I already had all
so
the
you're actually
solutions.
locking in now these rates just to kind of have a nice smooth run. You know where your numbers are going to be,
Yeah.
and you also have investors that you also have to look after, protect, make sure that
Exactly.
things run nice and smooth. The other thing that I liked about that story there as well too is that you are now you're in solution mode.
Yeah.
And here's what people want: is they want to be around people that can provide solutions for problems, and then you get paid based on the size of problems that you can actually fix, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the entrepreneurial world, wherever it is.
That's why Elon is where he is. Where he is.
Because so imagine the size of problems he solved.
Yeah.
Right? And so now what you've gone through, you now have new additional tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important message there that people really need to understand is that you're right, like don't hunker down, don't put your head in the sand. Like for us right now, we've actually got this event, a 4-part mini-series that we're going to be starting in November. Because look, our sales have come down, things have changed, and I'm never like, oh, well, I guess there's nothing we can do. It's like, okay, so what do? We have a database, how do we talk to them? And so we're calling it investment redlining.
Nice.
And so we're getting in front of it, and we're going to have case studies. Hey, if you have a property and it's redlining, what do? Let's jump in a call. We'll give out some ideas. Anybody else in the call, give us your ideas as well too to help out this one particular investor on what they should maybe do. And it's really
that's a mastermind.
Right, and all we're doing is saying, look, we're not going to hide. We're going to be in front of this. Hey, yeah, we're going to make mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm going to continue to keep learning and going through this, as opposed to sitting on the sideline and say, man, I hope this goes away so I can go back to how things were before.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well too is that this is a better market to be.
Yeah, 100%. And when we look back in history, at these next 10 months, you're going to see that these next 10 months were full of opportunity, we're full of wealth transfer, we're full of prosperity. Like, we are headed into a time of opportunity, and that's what I'm most excited about, right? I love working where people are flexible, things can be creative, let's figure it out, and versus, if this situation that I explained to you, if that would have happened to me last year, forget about it, right? Like, the sellers aren't being negotiable, no one's being reasonable, right? Because everyone's holding on to, their, $100 million property, right? Like, it's, no one is flexible when everything is going right.
And you know what? And that's a great statement, because nobody was reasonable. Well, at least now
on both sides, right?
At least now there's some reason.
Yeah.
At least now we can negotiate.
Yeah.
We can put some clauses in. You can go in. You can take a look at the property. You can negotiate. That's how a deal's supposed to work.
Yeah. Well, you were already an investor before 2020, and people forgot how transactions were done back then. When especially in the space that I'm in, apartment buildings, things took a long time. There was due diligence. I mean, sometimes a building would take a year to sell.
Right.
Right? And this craziness that happened in 2021, it was just bananas, right? It was not normal, like, and a lot of people started like that, so they don't know anything else.
Right. I talked to a realtor this summer when the market was going down, threw an offer in, and say, hey, well, like, awesome, congratulations, because you got the property.
Yeah.
So, like, when are you doing your home inspection? When's your financing up? Oh no, I went in firm. Oh, because they're just so used to going in firm on everything.
Yeah.
That when that market shifted, they've never seen it in any other light.
And so they're still operating based on 6 months ago.
Correct. And you know why? But you're right though, because there's going to be lots of opportunities. When I first started, it was in 2008. People thought it was crazy. Now you can look back and say, man, of course you should have bought in 2008. Yeah, go back to the feeling and the energy and what was happening in 2008.
Yeah.
That was not a time that you're supposed to be buying. That was the time you were supposed to be hiding.
I started my business during the recession, 1996, 97, and I would say partly it was my ignorance. People would say to me the word recession. I didn't know the meaning of the word. It couldn't affect me. People would say, "Oh, you can't start a business. There's a recession," and I was like, "Oh, that's good." I didn't know what it meant.
I guess sometimes it's almost okay to be naive at times.
Yeah. Well, it served me. I would say 80% of the things that I've gotten into, if I would have done them today, I probably wouldn't have moved forward on them, because now I know too much. I know what could happen to me. What are the consequences?
Right.
And so I think, having being naive in a way in my early 20s, because I took a massive amount of risk, and I think that's the appropriate age to take massive amount of risk. Go high risk when you're in your early 20s, because you have all of this time to recover. And of course, because of all of that, I did end up in trouble when I was 24.
So that's another good point there as well too, because you're right. Because now when you have too much information, sometimes you can get into that analysis paralysis, or you're like, okay, well, hold on, here are all the different consequences.
Yeah.
Where in the beginning you're like, what recession are you talking about? Even for me, it was just more like, well, hold on a second, I got to outpace inflation. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
So, but I had limited information, and sometimes when you do have too much information, it can hold you back. I mean, I see a lot of investors that come to the mastermind, they listen to the podcasts, or on the webinars, and they don't take any action because they're looking for more information, more data.
It can be addicting, you think you're doing something, you read the next book, you're like, when's the next book? Or can you recommend me a book? And then, now there's like massive amounts of people reading books but not doing anything. You watch a YouTube video and, you feel like you've accomplished something. But here's the truth. No one will ever remember you for something you almost did. It's only the things that you actually do, the things that you execute on, or you take action on, those are the things that people will remember you for, right? And a lot of people spend too much time in just working out without ever seeing a main event. They spend all their time training, but they never saw a main event. And so I think it's a mixture of both. You do need to educate yourself in some way, but you're better off reading a sentence out of a book and going out there and acting on that sentence, or learning about it, or executing on it, and then coming back and reading the next sentence. And you'll get more out of that book than reading that whole book and then going on to the next book. I met this guy who read 700 books. You know what I told him? I said, what did you do? What have you done? He's like, well, nothing yet. I got to get this next book.
Right. Yeah, they're just gathering information and not going out there and taking action. Is that the key ingredient? I mean, I know that's pretty much what you got a lot of people saying. It's just the action piece.
Well, first is the mindset. Because the action, without the right mindset, you're not going to take the right action.
So it's not even the skill set then. So it's a mindset.
Mindset first.
Action.
Mindset, knowledge, right? Then action, right? So mindset is important. You need to expand your mindset, right? you need to tap into more of what you're capable of. You need to tap into more of your potential. You need to establish, new core beliefs, and surround yourself around the right people. So now your mind has been expanded. Then enters the knowledge, right? We need to educate ourselves based on what we're trying to do. And now that we have the right mindset and we have, we have some knowledge, now we take action. And if you have massive goals, you need to take massive action to get massive results.
Yeah, massive goals is huge. I mean, for me, I've made so many mistakes, but it's because I'm always throwing things at the dartboard.
Yeah.
And I'll throw 100 things at that dartboard, and maybe 3 or 4 will stick, but then usually 3 or 4 really good things, and that creates that expansion. But I look at you, and you're a leader. What allowed you to be a leader? Like, did you start off wanting to be a leader?
No, I didn't understand the concept of leadership.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it?
It's very interesting. And when people ask me, Alfonso, what are the books that I need to read? I want to get really good at real estate, and like a book like 10X, that's an attractive book. But I always tell people, you know what? You want to go to the next level in real estate. You need to be reading these 2 types of books: leadership and sales. Leadership and sales. Leadership and influence.
Who are some? What are some books?
John Maxwell. I mean, I could say that all of John Maxwell's stuff is good.
Were you born a leader? Do you believe that? Like, are some leaders born, or can you learn that skill set?
I was told both of my daughters. I have one is 27, the other one is 16.
Yeah.
I always told them, like, look, if you get in trouble, don't come to me and say, I got in trouble because of these people. If you got in trouble, I want you to own it. I want you to say, listen, I was the one that made this decision on my own regard, and I'm gonna respect that. If you come to me like that, I'm gonna respect that more than, oh, I was just following what everybody was doing. And so I've taught my kids to be leaders from the very beginning. For me, I grew up, in war, so my development in terms of school and things that what normal kids learn in terms of social situations, I missed out on. For between the ages of 2 to 5, I was in isolation because my grandparents had to keep me in hiding because my mom was a political prisoner, and they were afraid the government was going to come and kidnap me. So I didn't really interact with other kids between the ages of 3 and 5. And then when I went to school, I moved around so much, and I always felt, because we went to Montreal, then we had to leave. I lived in Nicaragua, I lived in Mexico City, Vancouver, and Ottawa, and then even within these places, there would be multiple neighborhoods, and I would always be moving around. And I think I developed ways to get to the top of the food chain quickly, because when you are moving around, you have to adapt, right? And you know that, especially when we grew up, kids are mean, and if you show any weakness, you're gonna go to the bottom of the food chain, and it's gonna be a miserable year for you. And so I figured out ways how to get to the top quickly. I don't know if that's where leadership comes from, but I remember going into a new school, and all of a sudden, within maybe a couple of weeks, I would have kids following me, right? Now I don't know, I have no clue if that's where it comes from. I have no clue. This is what I know. When I went through my dark times and I was living on the streets, I remember we you know that connection with your friends was everything. You know, it's like, man, I'm gonna die for you, man.
Yeah, that bond.
That bond, you know, and it's like, and you know, I grew up in Ottawa as a teenager, and like this is crazy to even say, but you know, you had like skinheads. That's what we had to deal with. I mean, I try to explain that to my daughter. There's no concept, but you would have literal skinheads walking around Ottawa, like people with swastikas and bald heads and the bomber jackets and the Doc Martens up to the knees. You remember? You remember?
Yeah.
And so you couldn't be caught by yourself. You had to roll with like 20 people, right? That's the only way you would ever walk around. And so I remember with my friends, we would talk about, you know, investing. And I remember like looking at buildings, and I was like, guys, like, you know, one day we could do this if we can all just like somehow work together. And you know, and I remember, you know, really inspiring the people around me. But I guess we were too young. And when I separated myself from that world, you know, I had to leave those people behind. But some of those elements stayed with me. And as I developed my career in business and real estate, and I started to learn more about leadership, I was like, oh, there's something to this. Because wherever you are in life, and whatever the goal is, the gap is always people. Every single time. And so you don't want to, and this is what I came to realize, you don't want to lead followers. I want to be a leader of leaders. I want to attract the people into my life that are also leaders. And I want to lead the way, my family, my company, with my investors, with my students, with everything that I do. I don't consider people to be followers, right? And I feel that the way to achieve the goals and where I'm going, the next 10 years of my life is gonna be highly focused on the development of people. And the more I can pour into people, and more time, more support, you know, the people that work in our company, I think that will bring us to the next level. And ultimately, I was like, oh, this is leadership. You know, this is, so I'm not sure if it came from all of that I just described, but once I started to read John Maxwell and understand how important leadership is and how much this world needs it, and those lessons that I shared with you with my youngest, now she's 27, she has got a program, and she's got a portfolio, she's got people that she works with, she's got this group of young people in their 20s all executing on real estate.
So, do you build a business, when you're building a business, you're building it with people, not a product?
Exactly.
So you want people that, and I think that's great, where you're building leaders as opposed to, you know.
A leader doesn't check out at 5, right?
Yeah, you know, you're right. I used to, when I was 9 to 5. I haven't checked out at 5 in a long time.
Yeah. But you know, even if the job is till 5, if you're developing other leaders, they're leading their own lives. You don't have to micromanage people if they're leaders. If you work on their development.
I don't recall this now. Did you ever have a 9 to 5?
I had it once.
Okay, and so you had it. How did you build your business then? Did you build it in after hours? Because a lot of people think that this entrepreneurial world is so easy, and it's like, oh well, you know, like I don't want to put in that much extra time. But you do. Like, how much time do you got to put in? Like, how long were some of your weeks in the beginning? And even how long?
I am all in,
Mhm.
right? I am all in. I am all in on everything. I'm all in with my family, right? I I spend a ridiculous amount of time with my kids. Um, People are like, how's that possible, right? Well, I have a calendar, right? And in my calendar, I put time to spend with my kids that is non-negotiable. The world could be burning. I'll take care of it the next day because this day is for my girls, right?
It's so hard in the beginning. It really is, but you have to do it. Because now, like,
Schedule it.
you're right. Because see,
Non-negotiable.
now when I'm having dinner with my family, that phone,
Yeah.
you're right. The world can be burning.
Yeah.
That thing can be, and if my phone keeps vibrating, I think I'll turn a lot of notifications off. I do have my ringer on and my text. I will just turn it off because it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's because in the beginning I would always pick up my phone. Like every single phone call is important in the beginning when you're building that business. But it's hard to get past that sometimes.
But you got to train your people too.
Yes.
Right. And obviously, yeah, there's going to be steps where you're going to be very much involved. But once you develop people, then other people can be more involved than you are in specific parts of your business. And you can focus on the parts that you're a genius at, right? The things that really, really give you fulfillment in terms of the business.
How do you scale though? Like when you started your business and you're a real estate entrepreneur and you feel like you're really busy, you're like, okay, I know I need to hire an admin because in the beginning you're the IT guy, you're the marketer, you're everybody.
Well, I think the most fortunate thing in my life is that I don't have many skills, and so I think for me, I always looked for the people that had the skills, and I attracted them, even from my very first business back when I was 17, or I'll go back to when I was 12, and I asked my mom for a pair of Michael Jordan shoes, and the Retro 5s, and then my mom said, "You're crazy, you know, like we're not dropping this kind of money on shoes, like you're crazy, you know." I lived in the projects, you know, Ottawa housing, and I mean it's ridiculous, you know, for shoes, it's like you can eat for the month, and so I said, okay, I got to figure this out, and so what I did was I traded things and tried to figure that out, and then boom, I got a paper route. And the paper route was an entire building, 27 floors, and it paid out $400 a month. For 12 years old, $400 a month back then,
Big money.
that's big money, right? The problem was, if you remember the papers, they were delivered after school and on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Well, now it's cutting into my cartoon watching time. Because you know the best cartoons were after school and Saturday and Sunday mornings. And so I was like, but I like the money though.
Yeah, you had like, what would you have, like Braveheart, you had,
No, you had
Thundercats.
Yeah, Hot Thundercats, Hercules,
Yeah.
you know, Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
You know.
Listen, there's a cartoon back then. G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, that was
Transformers.
after school, right? So you had Gem,
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, Gem, and then Different Strokes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was the life. And so, you know, I'm like missing all that. I'm missing out. And
You were prioritizing.
yeah. But I needed things because we didn't have anything. My mom couldn't afford it. So I looked at my best friend, Johnny, and I said, "Hey, you want a job? You know, you want to make a little bit of extra money?" Because he also wanted MJs, you know. And I said, "I'm going to pay you $200. You know, we're going to split this, and you're going to do the runs after school and Saturday and Sundays, and then on Thursday nights I'll go and do the collections of the money, right?" So then, what did I discover? How to make $200 free and clear, you know, and not have to work.
Right.
So it was almost like by accident, because now he's getting $200, but he's not gonna be feeling too good about making only $200 if I didn't develop him, you know, if I didn't talk to him, because sometimes he would get tired, or, you know, wants to give up or whatever. So I had to pour into him to make sure that he would continue doing this paper route, you know, and then I would show him, you know, like late nights, you know, because you collect after 6 p.m., right? And you would get this book, and then you'd have to go knock on the door and then get all the money from the people, and then you take your cut, and then the other cut you give it to the paper or whoever was running the paper, you know?
You know what's interesting about this conversation right now? There was a lot of people might be listening to it, and they're like, yeah, but what does that have to do with real estate investing? It has a lot to do with it, because real estate investing is a business.
Hey, absolutely.
And you have to treat it like a business, and this is how you grow. When you're able to grow and you can bring other people in that have other skill sets that you don't have, and you can focus on your core skill sets, that's how you grow.
But the key of that story was that you can't bring people in and forget them.
Right.
You have to continue to build them. You need to be able to help them, inspire them, figure out what their goals are, right, and help them achieve those things. And then the very next thing that I did was we got a second paper route, right? And now my buddy Johnny, he participated with me on the second paper route as partners, and then we hired another kid, you know. And so now I have this newspaper empire, and I've scaled the business because I've developed people. Going back to the question, how does someone scale, right? How does someone scale the business starting today? You know, first of all, you need the skills. You need leadership skills. You need to learn about leadership and sales and influence to understand that, you know, just the position of boss, that's the first level of leadership. You know, it's positional, right? I'm the manager, you know, you got to listen to me. Yeah, people will listen to you, but they're only going to listen to you because of your position. But when you are developing leaders, when you're developing other leaders and you're now engaged in the development of people, people now have ownership of what they do. And that way you can start growing, because you don't have to micromanage all of these different aspects of the business. Now you can grow. I mean, it's unlimited. It's unlimited if you have the right people in place.
Right. How do you get the right people in place? How do you know the difference between leaders and followers?
Yeah. Well, that's a hard one,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would have to say that if you're a leader without followers, you're just a guy taking a walk.
Yeah, I like that.
That's John Maxwell, you know.
Yeah.
But also you have to be a leader yourself to attract the right people, right? So the very first step is investing in yourself. Investing in getting around the right people, the right circumstances, the right ideas, the right expansion, the right leadership books, you know. Just pour into yourself. So now you are a person that can give. And so I think it was Henry Ford that said, why is it that when you only need two hands, you get the full person? People come with baggage, people come with past paradigms, and you know, people come with, you know, people are very interesting in that way. But also, when you get a human being, you have all of them. You don't have just their hands. And you have to develop that person in the same way that you poured into yourself. Now you have to pour into that person. Now, sometimes it can be the wrong person. I think it was Richard Branson. I think it was one of his VPs or something. They're like, well, what if we spend all of this time investing into these people and they leave. And he says, well, what if we don't and they stay? Right?
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, there is going to be times where people are going to let you down. That's just that there's going to be a tenant, there's going to be, you know, there's going to be a bugger somewhere, there's going to be someone that's mean, people that feel entitled, people that are trying to, you know, I've been to the landlord tenant board, yes, many times, but I've also been to the labor board, right? And, you know, ultimately, you just got to keep moving forward, because out of all the people that are gonna let you down, you're gonna become you're gonna become more aware of who they are, the right questions to ask, and you're gonna make less mistakes moving forward. Very similar to tenants. At the very beginning, I'll speak of myself. When I started, I made some mistake with tenants. Things when my gut said, you know what, don't trust this person. And those tenants just, you know, they just had their way with me. You know, I felt violated, right? And from that same perspective, I've had employees that I felt violated by employees. But after so many people, now you start to ask the right questions, and you start reading people, you start thinking about contracts, you start asking questions about what they want, and all of a sudden you become like this leader of other leaders. And so it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a must. It's a must. If you want to scale the business, if you want to go to the next level, if you want to grow a little bit, whatever it is that you want to do, it's going to include people.
Do you have a personal coach right now?
I haven't had a coach for a while. I think I have multiple coaches. There's people that I call on a consistent basis, like mentors, that I've built relationships over the years.
Right. So you bounce ideas off, and you ask them for guidance, or what do you do in this situation? And
it's important. It's really important. But if I were to, you know, if I say, like, if the situation ever presented itself where, you know, there was this person that whatever, you know, I don't have a problem. I mean, I've paid for coaches in the past. I've invested in myself, you know, for the past, you know, I would say more than 27 years in mentors, you know, consultants, coaches, and over the time I've built relationships, and I have a lot of mentorship, and I still feel it's important, and so so I'm still going to continue to invest in myself.
All right. So I want to kind of, we're getting close to the end here. I do want to kind of wrap it up this with maybe a couple more questions about the company, because the mindset stuff is important, 100%. And you say, Gary, Alfonso, I love all the mindset stuff. I know, you know, you're teaching me how to build a business, but man, I am shitting the bed right now. I didn't realize the market was going to take off this quick. My properties are now red money.
Yeah.
What are some advice to navigate through this? I know you had mentioned to say, you know, to try maybe hold the line, but like what else can you do?
Well, you know, stabilize, optimize, maximize. So think about, you know, think about the things that move up and down, and how can you just, you know, either restructure, reposition, you know, maybe sometimes you might have to borrow more money to pour into this property to get it to a level where it's actually going to make sure that you're breaking even or whatnot.
Right.
You know,
Variable, fixed. Any thoughts on that?
I would say for the next 3 years, hunker down.
Hunker down.
Hunker down in terms of the interest rate. You know, I like to know exactly what I'm getting, but sometimes, and this is a very hard question that you're asking.
I know.
It depends on the individual. I have a $10 million mortgage that I just discussed. A variable rate on that could wipe me out, right? Like a few points, it's significant. But then I'm refining another property that I've owned for about 20 years, and I'm pulling out we're refining it, it's like 900,000. We're doing variable. Why? Well, worst case scenario, I can deal with it, right? If something happens, it's manageable.
And I guess it also, yeah, and you're right though, because it does depend on the individual.
Yeah.
It depends on how long you've also been in the game,
Yeah.
right? And here's one thing that I've shared with people is and whether you have an investment property or whether it's your own personal home, I think you've got to sit down and do this. You've got to take a look at your income, whether it's your personal income or the income from that investment property. You got to take a look at your expenses, whether it's for your own personal home or for your investment property. And then you've also got to take a look at the savings, whether it's your own personal savings and the reserve fund for your property. And then you find a red line. Whether that was at 2% or 6%, you got to find, okay, where do I need to now say, hey, now it's time to humble. Now it's time to really pay attention and say, let me just ride this out. Because listen, I think people got so caught up in all of this in the last 2 years that they thought this was a get rich quick. This is not a get rich quick.
It's not. It's get rich slow.
Yes, and maybe get rich for sure, but it's not a fast game.
Yeah. And you know what, Gary? I love that you say that because, and this is what I share with my students all the time. Listen, what is the worst case scenario? Can you deal with it? And if you cannot deal with the worst case scenario, you should probably not be doing that deal, right? This is where people get into trouble. And so I stress test my own deals. And you know, if you're doing deals right now, look at if you're doing a variable, stress test it. See what it looks like, you know, at 6% or at 7%. Can you live with that? And if you can't, then you should probably, you know, fix that rate, you know?
Right.
And
it's not even saying that we believe it's going to go there, but if it does, could you handle it?
That's it.
It's a decision that you have to make for yourself, not because Alfonso said do variable or fixed, not because Gary said
exactly.
It's not because it has nothing to do with anybody else. You've got to take a look in the mirror. You got to take a look at your own numbers, and then you got to do it based on where you feel comfortable. It always goes back to here's what it is right from the beginning, back in 2008, 9, 10, is what allows you to sleep.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Right.
And what happened? And I've even been in situations where I got to put more money in the deal just to make the cash flow work. Well, then do that, right? Because what happens is that money doesn't go anywhere. It's in the property, right? And so, you know, people get so fixated and they become anchored to the 80-20 or the 75-25 loan to value. But if it works better for you at 70-30, you're better off because that extra 5% is never going anywhere. It's in the property. It's being preserved. And you're better off putting that 5% into that property and making it cash flow than getting stuck on the 75-25, you know, and you're barely over, you know, you're barely breaking even.
That's great advice. And sometimes, you know what, maybe you bring another investor in.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
It's okay to share.
Yeah.
Right? You know, they say it's better to have half a watermelon than a whole grape.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, what's going to happen is when things regulate and correct, interest rates will come back down, and then you're refi, and then you have that money's there. It doesn't go anywhere. The only time you lose in real estate is when you put yourself in a situation where you have to sell. And if you have to sell, especially in a down market, you're going to lose every time.
And it's unfortunate because there are some investors that have put themselves in that situation in this market where they thought that it couldn't turn. Everything was just going up. And, you know,
if there's investors like that right now, I would say sometimes those are the best lessons for you.
It's unfortunate, but you're correct.
I discovered how important it is to never waive your conditions until you have everything in place. And people have told me that, you know, 20 years ago, you know, I went to, you know, trainings and people said, don't waive your conditions unless you're ready to go. But it never really clicked in until I waived my conditions, and then I found myself not being able to close. And now I'm being sued by all different parties, everyone sued me at that time. This is like 20 years ago. Now what I've learned, because of that situation, which was horrible at the time, it was like, it just felt horrible, right? I think it cost me about 40 grand in lawsuits and lawyers and everything to not buy a property. And it was a hard lesson, and it was 40 grand that I didn't have. But now when I step up to a deal and I feel pressure to waive the conditions, I know that until I waive my conditions, I still have all the power. And I want to make sure I have everything in place before I move forward. But I would never ever have learned that lesson unless I went through it. And sometimes people you can repeat it over and over and over until you learn that lesson. You're not going to know it. And those lessons, if someone right now is sitting with properties that are kind of underwater and they're going to have to rise up, that's what you're going to have to do right now. Rise up and figure out solutions, whether it's bringing on more investors and bringing down the principal of the mortgage so you can make it work, whether it's creating more income in the property, storage units, laundry facilities, parking, whatever it is that you have to do, you are going to become stronger because of it. And you're going to be a better investor moving forward than you ever were. You're going to be a superhero moving forward once you get out of whatever it is that you're doing. When I sit with my investors, sometimes investors will ask me, have you ever had a property, or have you ever had a situation where you lost money or whatever? And I'm not gonna lie, I'll say, yeah, like 20 years ago, I went through some tough times, but I came out of it. People now they're like, okay, I'm with someone that has the experience. Because if you're getting caught right now, it's just lack of experience, right? You started something in a market that was booming. You assumed that it was always going to be that way, and you got caught with your pants down. All you got to do now is move through this, and at the other side, you're going to be a superhero. You're going to be, visualize yourself on stage, on Gary's stage, telling the story one day of how you were underwater and how you were solution oriented and you got yourself out.
Right. Think back to that Tyson fight. And if you're in that situation and your back is under ropes and you're ducking and weaving and you're trying to survive.
Yeah.
Fight back.
Fight back.
Right. This is your time to fight back and win. I like that. Maybe that's the title of this podcast.
Yeah.
Now is the time to fight back and win. Alfonso,
I love it.
This was great, brother.
Hey,
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, brother.
Yeah,
you're a superstar.
So are you, my friend. And I'm really looking forward to tonight. And always great fun seeing you, hanging out with you, sharing ideas, and just having an unscripted conversation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, brother.
All right, man. All right, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Beautiful, brother.
Wow! Look at this. Our friends are still here.
Awesome.
What do you got to tell them?
I gotta tell them that was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
My man Alfonso always dropping not nuggets, bombs.
We came here to drop bombs.
Yeah, and this is what this is all about, right? It's about sharing ideas, having you guys learn from the mistakes that Alfonso's made, that I've made, and so that you can use these ideas and implement them and add them into your life. And that's what it's always about, sharing ideas and learning from each other and growing together as a community. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you, guys. We're gonna be back here. We're gonna do this multiple times.
Yes, we are. We're gonna do some series.
This is fun. Alfonso loves you, and we'll see you at the top.
All right. Peace.